I'm Elan Wenzel, owner-operator of Element Knife Company located in Denver, Colorado. I am a Colorado native myself. We are a full-service knife shop. We offer classes and services. We do sharpening services and repairs, so we can repair chips, broken tips, Japanese handles and Western handles. We can re-blacken a blade, reprofile knives or bolsters. We offer knife sharpening classes, and I teach my students how to sharpen double bevel by hand on ceramic water stones following Japanese methods. And the class is really comprehensive, and we supply everything you need. By the end of class, I always feel confident that people are going to become successful at sharpening at home. Our knife skills and safety class is really fun and once again pretty comprehensive, where we're going to teach you and build into your muscle memory how to hold the knife appropriately, how to use the claw method so your fingertips are tucked behind your knuckles, and the different cutting techniques. And then we're going to build a recipe in the class. We're here to help support and educate folks based off of my 30-year career as a chef. A classically French-trained 3-year culinary apprenticeship. I did fall into sushi in 1999 and had an opportunity to train sushi in Japan in 2004 for a short time. And that was really the inspiration for Element Knife Company and what we're doing here today. The majority of the products that we carry, I have used in a professional setting. I really have curated the store with all of my favorite brands, things that I've used. If we do bring in new products that I have not used on a professional level, for example, like a local knife maker, I'll buy a knife from them, use it for 6 months, put it through the paces, get an understanding of how it sharpens, how it holds an edge. I might even pass it on to my chef buddies and get their feedback. And if it passes the test, so to speak, then we'll bring it into the shop. That way I can speak about it with a deeper understanding. As a young culinary student, I got a set of knives that was included with the tuition. They were great knives, but they were a little on the lower end. And I always kind of had a love affair with knives. And I would see higher level chefs with shinier, fancier looking knives. And I was kind of always like, hey, what are you using and why are you using it? And so I'd save my pennies. And just out of curiosity, I would buy one brand and then another brand. Even though they looked a lot alike, they felt very different. And so this was the very beginning of me coming to an understanding that design and craftsmanship can really play a factor in the functionality of a knife. I fell into sushi basically accidentally. I was hired at a restaurant here in Denver to be a kitchen manager, and when I showed up for work on my first day, they needed help in the sushi bar. Getting back behind the sushi bar, I just absolutely fell in love with knives all over again. I had never seen Japanese knives, Japanese style handles. I had never seen single bevel knives. I had never seen carbon steel at that point in time. So it really drove this curiosity, and I wanted to just learn more and more and more about knives. And so I kind of went through that process again of like, okay, why this style, this shape versus this style, that shape, even though in a profile they might look a lot alike, but they're going to behave much differently. Once again, saving my pennies, buying up tons of knives just to kind of compare and contrast and satiate my curiosity. And when I had that opportunity in 2004 to visit Japan and train sushi in Japan, I saw knife shops like nothing I had ever seen. Small spaces, 300 or 400 square feet with just almost floor to ceiling knives and other tools. It just blew my mind. And so I've been on this mission to learn more and more and more, and I'm still learning today. In those very early days, I knew, although it wasn't completely identified, what the ethos would be for Element Knife Company, but I knew I wanted to support and educate because of my experience as a chef and the things that I have seen and learned, and I really wanted to share that. And I think part of that came from culinary school as well, being on the competition team, where they kind of drilled into our heads like, let's all work together and let's all rise up together. So I figured I could bring that into the business. That's what we did. We created the website really to be a resource. We have a Learn Center, and there are 9 sections, and each of these sections go pretty deep. We talk about metallurgy, we talk about different types of steel, we talk about the elements, and that's actually why I'm pointing at my hat, because I've got Element Knife Company. There are more than 13, but there are 13 most commonly used, mostly metallic, but natural earth elements in the different alloys. And each of those elements can be responsible for an attribute in the steel. So I thought it made a lot of sense that we would be Element Knife Company. And it kind of goes it's multifaceted with the name too, because knives are made from the elements, especially in the very early days of knife and sword making. Water, fire, and elements from the earth, right? Iron and carbon. Japanese knives really are produced by a guild of artisans. You've got a blacksmith, for example, that will forge out the knife and get it mostly to shape. But then the knife will go to a sharpener. And these sharpening shops will put on the final tapers and lines and sharpen the edge, and or whatever the polishing is, because there are different Japanese finishes. So there could be something like migaki, which is polished, and that could be anywhere from like brushed finished to mirror polished. But then there's something called sokasumi, which when you have cladded steel, like a soft steel on the outside and a hard steel for the core, and you give it this sokasumi finish. Kasumi means mist. And so you use natural stones basically, and you polish the edge where the soft steel is very misty looking. And then the line where that soft steel meets the hard steel is a little bit more polished. And it's a really, really cool finish. So the sharpening shops will do the sharpening and polishing. Meanwhile, there's a handle maker. And so these guys are making different styles of handles, whether round or octagon. They might have a ferrule or they might be a mono material. And then you have an engraver. And so this guy is like hand engraving on the knife. And typically the engraver will also affix the handle. And so these guild of artisans produce that knife. And so it's true craftsmanship that is coming together to make these Japanese knives. I would say that half of my customers are home cooks, chefs at heart, and the other half of my customers are professional chefs. And I really don't consider myself a salesman. I'm just a guide, right? I can answer questions, I can make suggestions, and there's quite a range of home chefs too. Some people that are kind of knife nerds and they know a ton of stuff, and some people that maybe are just getting into quality knives for the first time, but they're not familiar about like what one shape is over another. So I will, like if this is a shop experience, I will pull knives off the wall after asking a handful of questions like, well, what are you looking to do? The type of cooking that you're looking for, are you wanting to butcher meat, or are you just wanting something that can function as a multi-purpose daily driver? So I ask these basic questions, and then we take some knives off the wall and we get their hands on the knife and we get a sense of like, do they like a heavier knife? Do they like a lighter knife? Do they like a Japanese handle versus a Western handle? Because body mechanics are different. I wouldn't say that there's a right or wrong answer in that regard. It's really what's best for the user. So I help identify that for people that come into the shop that may need that extra help. It's important because not only do we want people to be successful in their kitchen, we want people to feel good about their purchase. Whether it's a sub-$100 price point or a $500 price point or anything in between, or sometimes even more. There's a distinct difference between a cheap knife and an affordable knife. You don't have to spend a lot of money to get a great knife that is going to perform well and last you a lifetime. Cheap knives are made with cheap components, little to no thought in the design. You probably won't get more than a couple years out of a cheap knife. But an affordable knife that is made with good materials and a good heat treat and some amount of thought in the design of the handle and the balance will perform well. These knives will last you a lifetime. We want you to feel good and confident going home. You know, I often say that life's too short for dull knives, and that really, I think your time in the kitchen should be a joy, not a chore. And when you work with good tools and sharp tools, then you're going to achieve that. So outside of a lot of our knives coming from Japan or Germany, we do have American makers and local makers. We also have about 14 Colorado companies in the store. These are companies and people that make things like cutting boards, aprons, knife rolls, pottery, other accessories. There's this guy out of Fort Collins, Aaron Williams, that does the Endeavor Works, that makes these fantastic hand-carved spoons and what he calls heirloom spatulas. They're a flexible 1095 steel spatula. We have some other local makers that make spices and chili sauces and whatnot. So I think shopping small is really important. We're kind of fighting against the giant corporations of the world that are mass producing whatever it is. This is really boutique, handcrafted, heirloom, last year lifetime products that we offer.